Understanding and applying the foundations of great speaking can help you stand out, make connecting, rapport building, and engagement a whole lot easier. Well, let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk because success isn't a given. What's required is a willingness to learn the principles of great speaking and be willing to apply them. My guest today is going to tell us how.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jolles.
Today's guest, Norm Boaz, is founder and owner of SpeakFluence, Make Your Voice Count, presenting workshops and coaching a broad range of clients in both the corporate and public sectors. He has a master's degree in music and over 45 years' experience as a voice and public speaking coach, speaker, consultant, professional singer, music conductor, and composer. He literally considers his work as play and is passionate about helping his clients better present, communicate, connect, and influence by teaching them the principles of a dynamic speaking voice and how to use it. A pleasure to have you with us, Norm, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rob. Great to see you. Great to have
Good seeing you too. Yeah, man. Well, it's a pleasure. So let's dive in. You mentioned speaking effectively and dynamically can improve your success in all sorts of multiple aspects of your life. I think most people see only winning that moment in front of an audience, or maybe I see that sometimes. What are some aspects of life that can improve when we speak effectively? And let's not just think on stage in front of an audience. Let's look broader at that. What do you think?
Well, you've got leadership, you've got managerial positions, you've got obviously conversations, relationships. People are in many walks of life. They'll go to what we call networking events and so forth. They oftentimes don't even know how to really engage with people. They're a little put off by that experience. It can help in our chats in our family even, or building relationships or mitigating problems. My quote is literally, great speaking makes everything more effective and sets you apart.
Yeah.
Storytelling, on and on. I think everything we do, great speaking can really make you stand out, can improve situations.
Yeah.
And I think the lack of it can be a problem.
Yeah. And I think, the sad part, Norm, is that a lot of times great speaking or learning to speak great falls into, the dreaded category of soft skills. So, and so we look at how we're taught through school. We're taught a lot of hard skills. And yet most people don't fail because their hard skills fail them. They fail because their soft skills fail them. And I love the litany of reasons you just presented, because again, a lot of people think, well, I'm not going to put a mic around my neck. I'm not going to be in a Marriott ballroom. Why do I need to learn to speak publicly? But I just want to repeat a couple of things that you said, which are really important. What if you're a manager, right? What if you're a salesperson who's worked very hard on a sales contract and they say, good, you know what? We're about the 2-yard line. I want to bring you into the boardroom, have you meet the team, give you about 30 minutes in front of them, and then we'll make our decision. I wish people would understand, maybe let's stop thinking like professional speakers or presenters and just look at another form of communication. And that's what you speak about, correct?
Absolutely. So this was a few years ago. My beloved little grandson was scooting around in the living room on his plasma car. Zip, zip, zip. I'm in the kitchen. He comes around the corner. Bang, right into my shin. Instantaneous, what am I going to say? It would be easy to just blow up. Thankfully, I caught myself in that moment. Instead of reacting, I consciously thought, let's handle this a little differently. Hey, buddy, you got to be careful. That hurt Grandpa. Just take it easy, man. Next time, watch where you're going. No problem. See you, buddy. There was a silence for a minute, and then he just looks up and says, okay, Papa, and off he goes. Had I handled it differently, I know this kid, he's a gem, but he would have gotten very defensive. I call that tonality or tone of voice. Can a great leader who maybe has to correct one of his reports and he has to sit down with them, the tone of voice is pivotal. The tone of voice can create a whole different environment, a place for growth, and elevate the team and allow for people to grow, overcome challenges, and so forth. Tone of voice, it's amazing.
Yeah, but no, and it's wonderful. I love the example. My concern would be, and so help us out with this, is that that makes a lot of sense. But in the heat of the moment, how do we remember that? Because I've been knocked in the shins a few times as well. You give me 5 minutes, I'm very calm. But in the heat of the moment, maybe I don't have that discipline. So in training, sometimes we use job aids, things like that. Is there a way to remember that? Because our instinct may get in front of logic here.
We're on this personal development journey. When people come in, I can tell them all these facts and great principles. They'll have massive ahas and so forth. They have to consciously internalize it and practice it. And, I love quotes, Rob. I just love quotes. They capture so many things. We have to internalize the meaning. So it means that we have to say to ourselves and to say, I'm going to have these moments in my life. They're going to come up. So the next time they come up, instead of just reacting, I'm going to say, hey, here's one of those moments. That's not my normal reaction. So my little grandson and I have a tremendous relationship, but throughout my many years of existence, that's not my normal reaction over the years. But I think at my advanced years, I was able in that moment to say, hey, in that millisecond, I was able to make a decision. So some of my students, when they go out, they might go out the door after the first lecture. That stuff's not internalized. But after, 10, 15 hours of training, I didn't just take one golf lesson and think I can score. So now you're changing behavior, you're
Right.
growing, you're expanding, and now you're making a decision. When that happens, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to think and respond. I'm not going to just react.
Right.
So we're all human beings, but I think we can grow and gain these skills.
Yeah. Yeah. And go and sometimes we have to hit buckets of balls in a sense, you know what I mean? to get that, take it from
Absolutely.
that conscious competency where I need to think about how I'm going to react to that knock in the shin to an unconscious competency where I don't really think about it anymore. It's become muscle memory in a sense.
But it's a beautiful place to live. That conscious competency area is really a delightful place to live because it means we're thinking and growing. And, oh, yeah, I've got that. Norm said, stand up tall when you step to the stage or when you get a chance to introduce yourself. They have to consciously say that. And then eventually they're just doing it and they've moved to the unconscious area.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's funny. You like the conscious competency stage, and I know you can't bypass it. You can't be consciously incompetent, meaning I know I need to work on this and just magically get to unconsciously competent. We have to pass through that conscious competency. Me, I love getting to unconscious competency so I can swing uninhibited. So I can make some of the moves that you teach us and not have to be thinking about it too much. But we both know that the problem there is eventually I'm going to start making mistakes and not know I'm making them again. So we cycle through. All right, let's talk about your company a little bit. I'm gonna take you back in time a little bit. Okay, you run a company called SpeakFluence, which, by the way, I love that name.
Thank you.
Everybody has a story. A lot of times I'm asking authors how they got started with a book, but with you, I'd like to know how you got started on SpeakFluence. You got such a vast background. How did this company come to be?
So music was always my default in my life. From age 7, starting to learn piano from my dad, and then growing trumpet player, then falling in love with singing in high school, starting to conduct choirs and conducting the pep band and wrestling and all this stuff going on. Got my degree in music, created my own company, got a master's in music. My company was Vocal Arts, and really had a vibrant voice studio teaching singers how to move audiences, right?
Mhm.
I'm in my studio. In between students, I got a phone call. A gentleman says, "Hey, Norm, this is Richard. I'm a vice president over a chain of hospitals in San Diego." He said, "I'm looking at your Yellow Page ad, and I just felt compelled to call you. I was sitting in a board meeting. This guy stands up. He's so eloquent. He's a physician and so forth. And we just lean forward. And yet half the time, I think he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I'm sitting there this week being frustrated. And I said, Richard, you need to raise your game in your speaking. And I didn't know where to look. So here you are. I said, well, I'm a voice coach for singing, and I help people move audiences that way. He says, yeah, I don't know. Can you help me? And in that millisecond, Rob, I had to make a decision. And of
Yeah.
course, I said, absolutely. When can we meet? He came in after a series of about 3 to 5 sessions. He was on his merry way. I had really helped him transform. He's really a sharp guy, very sweet, very soft-spoken, very horizontal in his speaking. Wasn't that interesting, but had a lot of content. And really, it was just, I just said to myself, wow. And I added it as an appendage over 30 years ago. And these last, maybe the last decade, it has been my absolute passion. I still do my music, and I'll share a cool thing with you. But SpeakFluence, Make Your Voice Count, was born in those moments.
Right. Love it.
And
And you know, it's funny that most of us, Norm, the reason why I asked you that question is most of us have a story. You know what I mean? Really, wow, we're walking down the street. And say, what the heck? SpeakFluence. I'm there. There's usually something that happens that strikes us, and you know, that's why I do sometimes I think of starting a podcast called "Everybody Has a Story," because everybody has a story, and it's those moments in lives. We just have to make sure that we're aware enough to catch them. That's one of the reasons why I preach and talk about journaling a lot, because I think when we journal, we're more methodically observant, and we don't miss quite as much. Sometimes things just it's like a dream. We think we'll remember it, but we don't really record it. We don't stop and think about it. And all we know is that we had something interesting happen the other day, but I don't even remember it. And here's tomorrow, and away we go. So but I love that. You know, it's interesting. Go ahead, Norm.
I wanted to jump in because there's
Yeah.
something I wanted to say to you. I didn't know where it was going to come up in our conversation, and I don't want to forget it because it's so fun.
Well, and it's coming up right now. Let's go.
So I was watching a podcast that you were on, you're being interviewed, and you said these words that I think probably most of the listeners would have missed, and it was just smashing me in the face in a beautiful way. Okay. And you said this, Rob, you said, sometimes it's not the words, but the tune. I mean, this was literally, to coin a pun, music to my ears.
Right.
Not the words, but the tune. And this is just something that I just felt, whoa, I love this guy. In the last few months, I've received lyrics from 2 different friends to write music to.
Right.
And the lyrics were beautiful. They were, one's robust and energized. The other is a very peaceful, spiritual centered. They're both spiritually centered, but one is more peaceful and so forth. But I have to take those words then and put a melody to it and harmonies to it. And it just takes these already amazing words and it elevates it to the next level. And it's my belief that people can speak that way too. They don't have to be singers. They can speak melodically, and they can move an audience by the way they put their words together. And it's just stuff that nobody's told them before. And that's where I come in.
Yeah.
Told them how to do it.
I really appreciate you holding on to those words of mine. I'll tell you a funny story about that.
Yes.
I rarely talk about my own books on my podcasts. You
Uh-huh.
can play them back. I almost never mention any of them. But the book that I wrote, the most recent book I wrote, was supposed to be called "It's Not the Words, It's the Tune." And the
Oh my God.
publisher said, "No, we don't like that." So they changed the title to "Why People Don't Believe You." But I was sort of brokenhearted. Now, the good news is I got it on the back cover. I wrapped it all over that book. But in fact, that was supposed to be the name of it, because I as a trainer was out there teaching people how to sell. Say this, say this, say this. It got by me, Norm. But then I started working, volunteering for people who were in career transition, and they were struggling. We were writing them elevator pitches, and we were writing them, all kinds of star stories and things like that. And they were struggling. And I thought, they're saying the same. I'm writing the words for them, and it's not coming out. They don't know the tune. So guys like you and me need to help people with that tune, because they'll throw up their hands and they'll say, well, that's always gotten by me. But I don't know about you, Norm. That's not good enough. I think everybody can find a tune, because what we're looking for is authenticity, right? Find your authentic tune. And it's beautiful that way. It doesn't have to, it's not the note, it's that authentic sound.
I suggest that people go home after they get my foundational training and make a new habit in their lives. And it's to read aloud 10 to 15 minutes every day. And as they're reading aloud, whether it's especially a children's book, or it might be an advertisement or an article, or, you name it, read everything. I said, go out, read aloud, and then start to incorporate the SpeakFluence skills that I've given you into your reading aloud. And they're safe. They're in their room or their bedroom or whatever. So they feel safe. They can really let it out a little more. And then I give them permission. I might give a CEO, hey, you can be more animated. Oh, wow. Will I shock anybody? You can be more expressive. If you say the word love, you can say it in a special way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's brilliant. Norm, I had my own an exercise I'll throw back at you. I like this. I like them. And then I want another one from you. All right. So I'm going to give you one, get one ready back at me. Okay. So one that I've used when I used to run training for Xerox, and I would work with some corporate VPs who would come in kind of like this. That's pretty much my range. And I'd say, okay. I give them sort of like what you said. I give them, write something down and say, here, I want you to say that, but I want you to say it even slower than you just, in other words, I want you to exaggerate this as a little bit too slow, too kind of boring. And they would do it. I say, now I want you to think about the way you normally do it. Only I want you to kick it up a notch. You wouldn't really do this in front of an audience, but exaggerate a little bit. Okay, they do it. And then I say, all right, now let's go back. And now this time I want you to practically talk like you're in mud. I want it really slow. Now the next time I want it really fast. And I would do it 3 different ways, basically stretch them forward and back and say, now go find me the middle again. And it would tend to pull up. And what we have to convince people is that they think that if they add some energy to that voice, that it won't be them. And in fact, what I tell them is, if I went to a ball game with you, if I had a beer with you, that's the voice you're using. Okay. But you're pulling it back on me. Let it out. So that was an exercise I'd use.
They're shocked. They don't see themselves in that. I have to teach people the concept of range, because person to person speaks in their own range.
Right.
I said, but then you have to honor the stage. That means the moment that you are given the chance to speak, whether it's on the phone, you're standing up at a networking event, you're doing a podcast, you are doing a keynote or a TED Talk. But the moment you hit that stage, which means you're opening your mouth and people are listening to you, you need to honor it by taking it up a couple notches.
Yeah.
And when you're given the floor, you have to bring at least one, if not two levels of energy above the room. Then I have to deal with all of these other elements too, which is people who aren't musically inclined don't understand range. So many of them are just talking down in here, like, as I say, they're on the couch, and then they continue to talk like they're on the couch. I have to get them to expand. I have massive acronyms of cool principles that then I teach them, and I take them into it. But for range, I might work from over the rainbow, somewhere. You have a full octave there. And I said, you don't have to sing in tune. And they're just shocked. Oh, you want me to talk a little higher in range? And I get them to, they actually have to physically feel it.
Right.
It's amazing. So it's you can tell I'm a little bit over the top with this because I love it. My work is my play. And to see these changes happen. And then I was working with a wonderful lady, her first session on Tuesday, and we did a little exercise, and then she did this, and she already has a fairly nice voice, but I had her do something else, and her voice came out in this most amazing way. And I just went, whoa. And she started smiling. She said, whoa, that felt so different. That's okay. I said, absolutely. Because she's going to be doing a number of breakout sessions and teaching in her area of marketing and so forth coming up fairly soon. And I want her to feel okay with these new experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes it's, there's a lot of acting that goes on. And I think sometimes we almost have to get into character. And so sometimes rather than tell somebody, gee, I want you to really feel energized, I'll tell them, all right, let's stop for a moment. Tell me the last time where you were really excited. Well, when my grandson was born, whatever. It's like, yeah, what was that like? And you see them, the pitch start coming up. Oh my God, it was okay. Before you walk into that boardroom, I want you to think of that moment. Feel, let the hair on your arm stand up a little bit. Feel that. And now you don't have to manufacture that adrenaline or that energy. You're there, and just take it in and don't be afraid of it.
My favorite phrase, one of them in my coaching, is I give you permission. And it seems to help them relax for a minute. Oh, okay. I remember one lady, she was a event planner, and she was Hispanic and had this beautiful personality, but she was scared stiff if she had to speak to a group. And I said, well, say this, say this, say this. And I said, yeah, that's it. She says, oh, but I feel like I'm acting. And I said, Laura, I give you permission to act. And it was like, oh, really? Okay. And what she didn't know is she wasn't acting. She was just being her relaxed, energized, very warm, connective, rapport-based person when she's working one-on-one. And I said, you just have to speak to the one. When you're speaking to a larger audience, you're still speaking to one person. It was just, I love the epiphanies that go, exploding in the out of a person's brain when we're in the trenches of coaching.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And we know it when it happens too. It's funny you say that because there's such a form of acting when we speak professionally. And I'm going to out myself a little bit here. I don't think I've ever mentioned this, but
okay, I'm taking note.
Yeah, here comes a realism from Rob. I much enjoy speaking. I'd rather speak in front of 500 people I don't know than 3 people at a dinner the night before who are hiring me to speak because I'm performing on that stage. And quite frankly, a lot of times it's not so much a performance. I'm so happy and comfortable there, and it's genuine. But I know that night before, that's the Rob that company wants to see. And I don't want to let them down. So quite frankly, I'd like to just eat my peas and carrots and have a bite of that and this. But when they say, how's the bread? I go, wow, the bread is what? I have to put on the white glove, so to speak, and give them that performance. And sometimes I wish you were there to whisper in my ear, I give you permission not to perform at dinner, because I'm not so sure that's what they want. But in my mind, I think that's what they're looking for. And so I struggle with that. There, you got an exclusive. I hope you enjoy. Now, don't tell anyone. Whoops. Okay.
It's fascinating though, Rob, how many people, each one has their own profile, their own experiences.
Yeah.
I had a laundry list of whys from a new client who will be starting next week, real estate agent, and all the whys, the areas that he felt he needed to improve on, so forth, and some of his strengths and so forth, and what brought him to me and so forth. And he's challenged by that one-on-one competition with maybe another real estate agent. But then he's nervous if he has to speak in front of a larger group, especially even on Zoom and so forth. The next person, oh, I'm fine in this context, but not so much here. It's just a fascinating place to go. But knowledge and practice takes you to a new place. And all of a sudden, we're helping people move from getting comfortable with the unfamiliar. The first time I grabbed a golf club, it was awkward. I could have said, oh, forget this. Or I could have fought through it. I'm not going to tell the coach that I'm not going to hold my club this way and so forth. And then all of a sudden, it's starting to feel part of me again,
Yeah.
Change is growth, or
Right.
growth is change. You can put it either way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I try and teach people, I say, do you have your MS in public speaking? I'm going to give it to you. It's mindset plus skills equals masterful speaking. Mindset plus skills. The mindset is wonderful because I can help them just think of some cool things that can help them instantly while they're still developing their skills. And everybody's got a different skill set. We've got the foundational things, but each person may have be ahead of the curve in this area and need this. So I love the mindset part. I've got to bring up this wonderful quote because it's so much of the way I view as a teacher, my excitement. It's a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. And it goes, that which we persist in doing becomes easier. Not that the task itself has become easier, but that our ability to perform has improved. It's massive. And it's at the center of personal development and gaining skill sets and working. And notice the way I spoke it. This is what I will tell people. Let's break down this quote because it's filled with so much. Where are we going to pause? What words are we going to emphasize? Are we going to speak in what I call chunks or nice phrases? And is this pause a little longer than that one? I'm going to mark your script for you. Invariably, they're going to read it back very effectively because they've got the markings. So they could go in and do a voiceover and read the script with the markings, and then all of a sudden they're at a whole nother level. That's why I want them to read aloud a lot and then start applying these. They're going to feel themselves, or they're going to hear themselves speaking differently, but their brain's now going to start accepting hearing themselves differently. Otherwise, they're really up against the wall because it will keep shocking them. But if I keep swinging that club better and better and better, it's going to feel more natural and more comfortable.
Yeah, well, you and I share a lot, Norm, because one of the biggest contracts I've had in the last couple of years, Fortune 50 company, I'm going to leave the name out, but I was working with their collections department. What's Rob Jollis doing working with the collections department nationally, all over the country?
Wow.
They had a script, Norm, and they really wanted to help customers that were in trouble. Okay. It helped them and it helped the customer. It was legitimate, but no one that taught them how to perform the script. Okay. So I call it the 3 Ps: pitch, pace, pause. Okay. And like you just said, we almost looked at it like a musical score. Where are we going to slow down? where are we going to change our pitch? Where are we going to pause? And teaching them the music behind that was life-changing for many of them. And one of in 31 years as a professional speaker on my own, not with Xerox now, it was probably one of the most rewarding contracts I ever worked on. And it was so out of my element because I'm really usually in the pit with salespeople. Okay. And there I was with people that were just trying to help others, but they had to find that believability, that again, that authenticity. It was exciting.
One of my acronyms
Yeah.
is called the P's of fluency: pace,
Yeah.
pitch,
Yeah.
phrase,
Okay.
pause.
Oh, you got an extra P in there. Okay. I
I
like
think
it.
it was phrase. It used to be pace, phrase, pause, but I want them to get some elevation of pitch in there. And so it's funny that you would come up with 3 of those 4 as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And look at it musically the same way you do, of almost learning how to create that musical score. All right. Let's keep going.
Okay,
Because I could stay here all day, and so could
I
you.
believe so.
Um, when it comes to storytelling, you're
Yes,
a
sir.
storyteller, I'm a storyteller. I'm curious about your opinion here. I love storytelling and public speaking, but I get a lot of my sales clients, and again, major corporations, are frequently coming to me saying, we want you to help us with our sales team tell better stories, be better storytellers.
Very common.
Norm, there's a yin and a yang to that for me. I know why they want it and I know the value, but I'm going to tell you, it concerns me as well. All right. I'll let you take the value part if you want, and I'll take the concern part. Fair enough? So, what's the value of somebody in sales learning how to tell a story well?
Well, I got a lot of feelings about stories.
Okay.
But great storytelling is all about the once upon a time effect. So when my little grandson, if he's spending the night and I tuck him in, we have a little ritual we go through, we say our prayers, talk about, I have to sing a song that I grew up, my grandmother singing to me. And then I'll go to the door knowing he's going to say, Papa, tell me a story. He literally does not care what story it is or whether it makes sense or anything. It's the way Papa tells it, and he's just on cloud 9. Tell me a story. So there's something powerful about that once upon a time effect, that it's more than just disseminating information. It is creating a mental picture, this wonderful translation, and the audience all of a sudden relaxes. Maybe I don't need to take notes right now. I can just enjoy this. Could be entertaining, but I've got a 5-piece little formula for stories. I mean, everybody can Google storytelling, right?
Right.
Up the wazoo information. This is the way to create an amazing story, and let's put all these pieces together. And I say, well, that's well and good, but at some point, you literally have to open your mouth and tell the story. We have to hear it. And that's a make or break moment. So I can take a really bad story and people are going to really love it. Or someone else might be able to take on paper an amazing story and it will fall flat because it's just the words on the paper. So that's where I come in. I help you. Now that you are voicing something, I'm thinking, and I'm sorry to go on here, but I'm thinking of a couple very impressive people on the internet and out and about. They're very successful in their life. They have amazing stories. I'm thinking of two people right now. I'm not that close to them. I'm not friends, but I've heard them speak. They have great information, very successful. One has pretty intense vocal fry, which is a vibration in her throat that has that little gurgle. If she were to cure that and want to change that, it would dramatically escalate because her story is so amazing that the story itself is really carrying the day. But if she were to add a change in how she used her voice, it would be amazing. The other girl has a very, I just love the way she speaks, and everything except for the sound of her voice is very small. Now, we can't extend her vocal cords, but we can add a more of a warmth, what I call a depth to her sound, which will give us a little more strength of credibility just from the sound, because her content is great. So this sound of the voice and how we use it, that's what I deal with. The vocal instrument itself, and how you use it. And it depends on the person, how much we have to spend in what area. So it's a fascination to me. I've kind of gone off on a tangent here. Storytelling can be magical by the way you speak and the way you put things together.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the Grinch Who Stole Christmas to say, now, what in the world would be wrong with storytelling? First of all, let me endorse what you just said and tell you that in one sentence, I like storytelling for salespeople because frequently it gives us the ability to tie the known to the unknown. Okay. And make that connection. So from a sales perspective, I'm not lost on storytelling, but now I'm going to take away Christmas for a moment. I'm going to say what concerns me. What now? And I'm just talking about a particular segment of the population.
Sure.
What concerns me about salespeople that obsess on storytelling is that it tells me that you want to do a lot of talking instead of a lot of listening. And so I don't mind helping you tell a story here or there. I just want to make sure that we don't get lost in too much storytelling and don't get back into asking questions and listening.
I agree 100%. 100%. Simon Sinek says how you tell a story is just as important as what story you tell. And I've seen him tell maybe 3, 4, 5 stories in a short segment. The story is so captivating, but it's short, clear. It has all of the 5 pieces that I would put in my story formula. And he doesn't go on or add a lot of information and stuff. So those pristine, clear gems that he captures in those mini stories is where it's at. We have people who tell stories for the sake of telling stories, thinking that they're just amazing. They're missing so many of the pieces, including the message.
Right.
There's no message.
Right.
So I appreciate your check and balance.
Yeah, and that's all. It's just, there's always a yin and a yang to everything. And but that's all. I'm really not taking away Christmas. I think that I tell a few stories myself last time I looked in the mirror, but I'm actually cautious myself of when I'm with a client to make it about their story and to stay focused on them. And it depends on the personality of the client and our relationship, but it's just let's just put an asterisk by it, see bottom, be careful that we're not overdoing it. But we all need to be able to do that, and it's critical. All right, I've got 2 more questions for you. First of all, because I'm going to close on fear. All right, that's a good way to finish. So tell me a little bit about the company and the type of things you do and the clients you work with, so people get a better understanding of if they contact you, what they're going to be working with.
Well, I'm always fascinated because there's no one type of client that comes in the door. I find in conversations that I have, it's more about their busy brain saying, oh my gosh, I see how that fits in with what I need or what my company needs. And invariably, they're telling me why they want to work with me or what they need. And I'm telling you, some of these companies, I'm totally amazed and fascinated because I hadn't thought about it, but then they come in and say, well, we repair appliances for companies. And I'm thinking, he says, but Norm, I heard your 30-second elevator speech and I just knew we want you to come in. We feel that we can make a better impression with our clients, that they will think of us as people and as a company, better customer service, but being more memorable. I'm saying, thanks, Bob. Yeah, keep telling me. And so it's probably every walk of life. I just finished working with a wealth management firm, and one of the office managers said, "We're a bunch of analysts here. And I know this company, it's just incredible, their integrity and everything." And so basically I've gone in and given them permission to deliver this amazing content that most of us don't know in a more animated, more interesting, more connective way. I did a workshop for builders and contractors, believe it or not. And I just said, well, I'm going to go in, I'm going to give these guys a list. There was probably at least 20 areas that they might be using their voice. And they're saying, whoa, oh yeah. Just to pop their brain open to say, this is how you can up your game. Whether you're a project manager or owner of a company. I literally had an owner of a company raise his hand and say, hey, Norm, I own my company. I have great ideas, but sometimes in meetings, I don't voice them because I just am a little bit under the radar with it. It amazes me. So when people come in the door, it might be an individual client or it might be a company. If it's a company, we'll sit down and talk about the culture, what's going on, how are they using their voices now. Individuals will come however they found me on referrals or others, and they'll usually tell me all of their concerns and where they'd like to be, and I'll give them a little snapshot of where we could go if they really want to accomplish something and not just be delivered all this information in one little heap and expect them to apply it. I have a gentleman who needed to get a TED Talk and then give it. He had to actually get the gig, then give it. Now we're preparing for some keynotes coming up and so forth. But he did the work in the trenches. He came in and started working and, going home and constructing and his talks and applying the principles. Amazing, the transformation. And that's what we're about, isn't it?
Right.
Is
Right.
helping people transform and stir souls. It's an amazing journey. So I don't know if, again, a long answer, but
Oh, good answer, Norm. That's
we
exactly what I wanted
connect
to hear
about,
because it's hard to put it into one little bucket. Communication's kind of a rather broad topic the last time I looked at it. So it sounds like you basically shaped the shot based on kind of
I
what the
love that.
needs of the customer are. Yep. There you go.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Coming down the home stretch, I'm going to put you on a communication shot clock on this one. You got 90 seconds. I got 90 seconds.
All right.
I just 15 minutes before we spoke, I responded to somebody's question on LinkedIn about I fear public speaking. What should I do? What's a good answer? Now, Norm, you and I could go 45 minutes on this one and then and be halfway through. So let's give me maybe your best quick shot at somebody who's listening right now going, all well and good, but fear keeps holding me back. What would you tell them?
Okay. So you've got all these things, rapid breathing, sweating, shaking, all kinds of these symptoms of fear of speaking or fear of being on stage and so forth. So I just said, we've got to mitigate the symptoms at least a little bit, and then we can dig into developing a better approach to managing our fear. First of all, we call it energy and excitement as opposed to calling it fear. You may still feel that it's fear, but I give you permission to call it something else. And then I call it breathe, please. Breathe, P-triple-L, please. Okay, really quick, you've got to learn to breathe deeply. I'm not going to take the time to teach you that. You've got to do some deep breaths, which will begin to mitigate those first symptoms. It'll calm them down. You can't do the other stuff without doing it. And you see all great athletes breathing deeply. So breathing is your friend. The P part is preparation. We're going to prepare. The more you prepare, the more relaxed you're going to be. Okay, that's the physical part. But the mental part is what's left out a lot, and that's visualization. And people need to know how to visualize. You must visualize yourself completely at ease, performing perfectly. You get to tell your self-conscious what it needs to see and feel. So that's the 2 P's, preparation. The 1 P, preparing physically and preparing mentally. And finally, the big L's. And I call this, and this you can apply to any kind of speaking, I call it the magic L's. And they're very simply, you must first love your message. And if it's a dry message, you better find stuff that excites you about it. But people need to feel that you love your message. The second L is you must love your audience. And you must personally be there for them, not for you. Love your audience, and they need to feel that you're there for them. And the third L, one of the most powerful parts of this, is you must let go of your ego. And that means really you're not going to worry about what other people think. You're not going to be distracted by that. You're focused on those first 2 L's, loving your message and loving your audience, letting go of your ego. Those things, if you will invest in that, you're going to dramatically reduce your fear.
Beautiful. I don't know if you got in under the shot clock, but well, that's okay. It was too important. Okay. I'll toss one back at you, but I'll be under 30 seconds on this one. Now that'll be impossible, but anyway, I'll go quick. What I wrote to the person before we spoke was track record. I said, just focus on 2 words, track record. Rarely does somebody who's anxious say, and I've never done it before in my life. They've done it. What usually happens? I know where your mind is. Well, what if the power goes out? What if the audience turns on me? Okay, all those negative thoughts. Tell me exactly how many times any one of those thoughts actually occurred. As a matter of fact, when you look at your track record, we almost always finish by going, gee, that was better than I thought it was going to be.
Absolutely.
And nobody sniped me. Nobody came after me. It really wasn't all that bad. Then we develop amnesia and we go back and do the what ifs. So a lot of times, just a real quick whisper of what's the track record? And oh, by the way, you're going to show up with that energy and enthusiasm and hungry. I worry when you've done it too many times and you forget about that audience you just mentioned, Norm.
Love it.
And it's such a walk in the park that they don't feel that energy from you. They don't feel you fighting for it. So let's look at fighting for it as a good thing. Let's remember that none of those bad things really occur. And quite frankly, the audience is rooting for you because if you don't do well, it ruins their day too. They didn't get what they wanted out of the message. So anyway, that's usually a whisper from me.
We're going mindset. You can control what you're thinking, especially if you've been given permission to do so.
Yep. All right, Norm, how do people get a hold of you? SpeakFluence, how do they get a hold of you?
They can go to my website, speakfluence.com, and that's with a C towards the end of that word. Don't put a T in there. They can call me 619-454-8006.
Or they can email you. Norm at speakfluence.com. I've been doing it.
Yeah, just put my first name in there.
There you go.
So lots of ways. I love LinkedIn. What a wonderful group of people there.
Yeah. Well, that's how you and I met. That's right. That's so it's engaging. Let's keep an eye on that. I'm a big LinkedIn guy myself. All right. I want to thank you for coming in. And Norm, let's leave the audience with one more lesson. And that is, when we get up there and speak, we don't need to tell people this is not my day. The dog isn't feeling well. I got the flight was late. And I'm mentioning that because I know you're a voice guy. My voice is a little bit chewed. I chose not to tell you at the beginning or this audience that after 4.5 years, COVID finally tracked me down. And so I'm just coming off my case of COVID. My decision was either to go or not go, but never to go with an excuse or tell that audience that we're less than 100% because it diminishes the performance. Maybe we tell them at the end so they can hear, but you just heard a guy, a podcast host, who muted a few times, by the way, coughing, give it his best shot. And usually that's going to be just fine. So let's keep all that stuff to ourselves and realize that our best really is good enough.
Yes,
Norm,
that's spot on.
there you go. Thank you so much for coming in. Been an absolute pleasure meeting you. Really grateful to have had the opportunity.
Been a joy to be with you, Rob.
Fantastic. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time with a clear-throated Rob Jollis. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.